displaying the glory of God's creation by exploring America one park at a time. Welcome to Parking Full Time with Big Dave, the park's professor. First hole. The par and distance are at the top of the screen. This hole plays steeply downhill into a ravine, and even though it's a pretty short hole and the downhill makes it even shorter, the line is really tight. In fact, this is one of the tightest lines on this course. So this is definitely not a warm-up hole. You need to be ready from the get-go and execute a good throw with your very first throw. I want to welcome you back to Parking Full Time. I am Big Dave, the park's professor. There's the first basket, and there's the view back to the tee from behind the basket. The second hole plays gradually uphill along the bottom of the ravine. There is a tight cluster of trees directly between the tee and the basket. There is a tight line around either side of the cluster. We just walked around the right side of the cluster, and at least when I played here, that seemed to be the best way to get around that cluster of trees. Here's the second basket, and there's the view back to the tee from behind the basket. The third hole plays moderately uphill out of the ravine. The obvious line is the direct one, and that's the one we're going to walk. There are no obstacles directly between the tee and the basket. There is also another possible line out to the right. Both of the lines are pretty tight, and so you have to pick a line and then execute a throw. We are at Buck Creek State Park. We are in Springfield, Ohio, and therefore we are in central Ohio. There's the third basket, and there's the view back downhill to the tee from behind the basket. The fourth hole is the first par 4 on this course. It plays back across the ravine that we've been playing in so far, or at least what's left of that ravine. At this point, the ravine is more of a gradual swale than an actual ravine. The hole starts out in a pretty open area, but you can see we're headed into a more wooded area, and in fact there are a large number of small trees that dot the area around the basket. So you're going to need a very accurate or very lucky throw to get close to this basket in one throw and therefore make an eagle. This is a short par 4, but it's probably a worthy par 4. I captured this video on Monday, October the 28th, and it was a very pleasant day with temperatures in the mid-50s when I came here. There's the fourth basket, and there's the view back to the tee from behind the basket. The fifth hole starts a series of short holes that play through a heavily wooded area. All of these holes have well-defined fairways, but the fairway has plenty of trees in it. Also on either side of the fairway is some dense underbrush, and so the rough is really rough. If you throw into the underbrush, that's going to be a tough recovery and maybe even a lost disc. I just glanced the camera to the right there. Most of the holes on this course have 2 baskets, and they're both yellow Innova disc catcher baskets, which kind of left me scratching my head because there's no obvious way to distinguish between the 2 baskets. And so for purposes of these videos, what I ended up doing is I ended up just picking whichever basket looked more interesting to me and then walking to that basket. Honestly, this course would be better if there was some way to distinguish between the 2 baskets that many of these holes have. The sixth hole is another short hole. It's a dogleg right and it plays moderately downhill. There is a well-defined fairway, but again, if you get off the fairway into that dense underbrush, that's gonna be a tough hole. The seventh hole is similar to the fifth hole, but it plays a little bit more downhill. The thought occurred to me that many of the holes in this area would be better if they cleared out some of this underbrush and maybe took down some of these small trees. That would make some better lines of play. Generally, I'm not in favor of cutting down trees, but in this case, that would open up some new lines of play, force the player to make some decisions, and also maybe save you from losing some discs in the underbrush. There was a basket off to the right there. We're going to head to the other basket for this hole, which is downhill to the left. Also, many of the signs on this course are not in the best of shape. And so while I like many of the holes on this course definitely does also have some rough edges. The eighth hole is another short hole. It's a gradual dogleg left, and while it's heavily wooded, it's not as tight as some of the other holes. It has a well-defined line of play, and so if you execute a good throw here, that should set up a birdie opportunity. I do want to thank you for watching. Parking full-time would not be anything without the people who watch. I realize that every day, and I thank you every day. There's the view back to the tee. The 9th hole is of course the last hole on the front 9. It's a dogleg right. It starts out pretty tame, but once we get around the dogleg, you're going to see that this is actually one of the hardest short holes on this course. Overall, I do like this course. I think it would be better if some of the underbrush was removed, and also it needs a little bit of fixing up in terms of the signs and the remarking, shall we say, of the baskets. But if you can tolerate a little roughness around the edges, this is a really good course. We're getting close to the basket, and you can see up here close to the basket there's this tight tunnel that you have to throw through, and considering you're coming around the dogleg, that's going to be really tough to hit that tunnel. This hole is a real challenge. That is the end of the front 9. I will see you on the back 9. Until then, have a great afternoon, take care, and Lord bless.